What's up, Wizards? I'm Deb from the place we like it. Mtg Ixalan spoilers are back. There was a few of them over the weekend. We covered those not long ago. Check that video out. You haven't seen it, but a ton of them came down the pipeline this Monday, as we figured might happen. We got like 25 more cards to look at today, and some really, really good lower rarity stuff. Some really, really interesting higher rarity stuff. Note how we keep seeing that pattern. Like the higher rarity stuff, even if it isn't like broken, really, really cool looking, and there's a lot of like theory crafting you can do with it. Today is no different, so I want to go ahead and get into it, but you know how it is here on the channel. We got to cover the whatever kind of stuff first. So let me show you a merfolk. At least it's a merfolk. It's Merfolk Cave Diver. This is 3 mana, 2 and a blue for a 2/4 Merfolk Scout. Whenever a creature you control explores, Cave Diver gets +1/+0 till end of turn. Can't be blocked this turn. It's fine. I guess a 3 mana 2/4 and limited is whatever, and then eventually it's going to get in for 3, like fairly reliably, right? I don't think this is actually terrible, but it is probably the least noteworthy card of the day. That said, it's probably going to sneak in when you a game or two, a draft or sealed. So like, don't forget it exists. It's an interesting explore payoff that will never see the light of day in standard. So we move on to Diamond Pickaxe, a single red mana. We got a couple of equipments in a row here. Note this is a fairly equipment heavy set, and this is one of them for a single red. It has indestructible. That's neat. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has, whenever this creature attacks, create a treasure token. It equips for just 2. We've seen effects like this recently. We even have some in standard right now. Like Sticky Fingers might be the closest thing to this. And it's probably not great. I keep bringing up this like theoretical red-based artifacts deck in this format, and I don't think this goes in. Equip 2 is like pretty high, fairly high, but a single red mana. Single red mana? Okay. You know, like, I guess we could get behind it, but even that I don't think is going to be enough. This looks like a really desirable line of text. Whenever it attacks, create a treasure token. It's the goblin text from Fable of the Mirror Breaker, but even then, I'm pretty sure that it's not where it needs to be, but I guess it can't be blown up. You're just going to be making treasure tokens forever, and they can't besage it, so, you know, fine. Yeah, Minecraft reference. Yeah, that's all this is really doing, isn't it, right? Build your own Fable. Exactly. Glowcap Lantern is a slightly, to me at least, more interesting equipment. Doesn't give the creature any bonuses, but it does a lot of cool stuff. It's got, well, any like power or toughness bonuses. Read the card. It's a single green mana for an equipment. Equipped creature has, you may look at the top card of your library anytime, and whenever this creature attacks, it explores. It equips for 2 as well, so I'm putting it way down here, just like the last card. I think that a single green mana, 1 mana, is intriguing for an equipment, right? But equip 2 is like so much, and it doesn't even have a special thing where it equips for free or whatever, and those are a lot of the good equipments equip for free in some way or another, and I just, as much as I want to like this, not a big, huge fan of this, especially considering it's kind of off color for like the equipment decks. You know, you see a red equipment or a white equipment, you're like, okay, and you try to like get your brain wrapped around it. Once you see a green equipment, it has to kind of be really, really good, and it's just kind of isn't, but it's neat. It's neat. You know, attack and explore. That's actually not the worst thing in the world, but what a commitment mana-wise to get this on something and swinging. So I want to like it better. Yeah, auto equip win. It's not now. Let's move on to Ruin Lurker Bat. This guy's actually been out for a few days. Just a single white mana for a 1/1 bat with flying and lifelink at the beginning of your end step. If you descended this turn, scry 1. I think this is the 3rd guy with flying and lifelink in this set. I'm fairly certain he's the 2nd 1 mana guy that's a 1/1 flying lifelink. So a lot of that. And there's a lot of Healer's Hawks in this set with upside. And this is a pretty cool one, you know. If you descended, by the way, quick correction. I believe in a previous video while I was babbling on about some red card or another, I said like, well, even if you just play a spell, that means you descended. And no, idiot, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that. It's specifically permanent cards that get put into your graveyard from anywhere, which is an interesting little piece of the tale there. But still, I just want to issue that. I believe I may have said something about that, and I was wrong. You can't just play an instant and that counts as descending. That's stupid. Of course you can't do that. So has to be permanent, but still, scrying basically the end of every turn if you're playing your deck right. Pretty good on your 1-drop. And it's a decent chump blocker, so I don't hate this card, but I'm not really sure what actually plays it. we've already got a couple of like 1-mana guys that want to be sacrificed in like aristocrats decks and stuff. And when it comes to it, I don't think the Descend deck, the deck that wants to descend, is going to be white, right? We might see like Abzan descend, but mostly it's been green-black, doing the really cool descend stuff, and a little bit of blue here and there, so sort of a soul tie strat. So I'm not sure this fits in where it needs to, but just, scry 1 every other turn or something, it's not bad. It's really not that bad. So I'll move on to Vanguard of the Rose, doing a really, really poor Adanto Vanguard impression. Fake mustache and all. 1 and a white for a 3/1 Vampire Knight. You can pay 1 and sacrifice another creature or artifact to have Vanguard gain indestructible until end of turn, and then you tap it. So it's just one of these guys. We've seen Adanto Vanguards like 5 times since Adanto's Vanguard was printed. And they keep getting worse than Adanto Vanguard, right? If we just had like a straight up sacrifice outlet, Adanto Vanguard, it'd be way better. But I guess we already have like Guardian of New Benalia, which is just better than this. Anytime this ability costs mana, it's bad, right? But sacrificing a guy, you want to think that's good. But this particular thing is probably only going to be good in like the limited Aristocrats deck, the limited Bartholomew deck, But in standard, I don't think this dude quite makes the cut. Mostly because you have Bartholomew and like a couple of other like free sack outlets that you might rather use. So cool card. I think it's decent and limited, but I don't think it's really where it needs to be. Much like the other 4 versions of this we've seen in the last 6 sets. So let's move on to Terrifying Visage, Michelle Visage. This is 2 mana, 1 and a black for an artifact. When Terrifying Visage enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals their hand. You choose an artifact or creature from it. Player discards that card. You can also craft with 2 creatures for 5 and a black, and it becomes Terrifying Skelesaur. This is a 5/4 skeleton dinosaur horror. It's throwing together good creature types. It has menace, and whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you can mill yourself 2 cards there. Why don't you, kid? Let me see if that message was anything. Something happened. No, it's just Reddit. Why do I care? Email. Anyway. So I don't really love the other side of this. I mean, it's big. It's kind of big. It's got a keyword ability, whatever. I don't care. But the fact that it all results from this, fairly halfway kind of decent 2-mana discard effect, I think is all right. I don't think this ends up seeing play. I had cat hair on my lip. I don't really think this ends up seeing play in standard. The craft cost is way too high. I think they were high when they made this craft cost. You also have to have 2 dudes, and yeah, they can be in your yard, so it's not that hard. But 6 mana is so much at sorcery speed. It's so freaking much. But it makes them discard. It's an artifact in the meantime. That might matter to you for whatever reason. You can bargain it. That's a whatever. Okay. And then if you don't, if it makes it through all of your bargaining and sacrificing artifacts to Bartholomew or whatever, then suddenly you get yourself a 5/4 menace. Okay. But I still don't think that even with all that value, it's that good because the craft cost is ungodly. So let's move on to Lodestone Needle right here. This is a single. It's not a single anything. It's a single colorless and a single blue. So it's 1 and a blue for an artifact with flash. Okay. When it enters the battlefield, tap up to 1 target artifact or creature and put 2 stun counters on it. And you craft with artifact for 2 and a blue. That's half the craft cost. The last thing we saw, what do we get? We get Guidestone Compass. This is an artifact. You can pay 1 and tap it. Target creature you control explores. Activate only as a sorcery. This is a much better card right here. This is yet another piece of like blue removal. I feel like we keep seeing these in this set and the last one. Remember, we kept getting a few things that put like cursed roll tokens on your opponent and creatures in blue and make some 1/1s and stuff. And that felt like kind of really good in limited. Didn't make it into standard, obviously, but whatever. There's go for the throats in standard, so of course it didn't. But, in limited, I think this is kind of decent blue removal that I don't think will make it into standard, but hear me out. When your opponent goes to move into their attack step, you can play this. They gave it flash. They gave this card flash. That's kind of amazing, right? They gave it flash. It has flash. So you flash it in, whatever, Dev. On their attack step and keep these 2 guys from attacking. And then they both get 2 stun counters. 2 stun counters is so long, so they can't attack that turn because they're tapped. They can't attack the next turn, and they can't attack the next turn, and they finally untap on like turn, 5? That's kind of really good, actually. And then it crafts for a really, really low cost. 3 mana is great. You could theoretically, if you somehow are playing this on turn 2, like you're on the draw, you're against soldiers or mono red, and you actually have a way to cast this on 2 guys on turn 2, so it's not super uncommon, right? Then the next turn, you could theoretically untap and craft it. Theoretically, I mean, it's possible, you know? So, the craft cost is just really low on this, and I hate that crafting is a sorcery. I really cannot stand it, but craft cost is lower than most things that we've seen, and you get this thing that just gives you value every turn, you know? Like, for a single mana, one of my guys gets a counter, I get a land, you know? It's whatever. Ability pays for itself if you get a land, you know? So, I don't know, man. It's kind of sleepery to me. I kind of don't hate this, man. It does a good removal impression, and it takes down, you know, a guy. It takes down a guy for a whole turn. Did I give the impression that it can hit 2 guys? I may have, but yeah. Tap down one dude until like turn 4 if you're playing it on curve. But if you're playing this on like turn 4 or turn 5 with flash and like doing other stuff, you're kind of taking that creature out of the rest of the game. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you're not untapping until turn 8. Like, let's go. What are you going to do about that? So I don't know. It's sweet. You can bargain this away too once its job is done. So yet another cool thing you can do with that. I don't know, man. I think that it's cool. I don't think it's going anywhere, so I've been talking about it way too long, but I really like the design. I think that it's kind of pushed to where it's like almost playable, but not quite. But I do like it. I do like it. The sorcery speed stinks a little bit on the back, but not enough to like make me hate it. Not enough to me. I think it's kind of okay. But I'll move on to Chupacabra Echo, which is really sad. Ravenous Chupacabra is dead. It's so sad. Die for Metal sent me a signed copy of Ravenous Chupacabra, and now it's I still have the copy. It's just now I know that the Chupacabra itself is gone, but his spirit remains. 4 mana, 2 and 2 black for a 3/2 beast horror spirit with Lless Descent. When Chupacabra Echo enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent controls gets -X until end of turn, where X is the number of permanent cards in your graveyard. Okay, so that's pretty good. In limited, you know, I'd just rather have Chupacabra, right? Blow this. Is Chupacabra too powerful for standard right now? Maybe. I don't know that it would take the place of Sheoldred, but people just play it alongside Sheoldred. That said, really decent limited if you're, you know, if you have a way of getting a bunch of stuff in your yard. And it might be pretty decent in the like Stick Fingers, Cruel Somnophage, Urborg Lorgoy. If you guys are right, that deck does need a name. In that deck, you know, I've talked about Skyfisher Spider in that deck before, and I still think that has a place perhaps, but this is up there too. You know, if you spend the first 3 turns of the game milling yourself, then suddenly this will give a creature like -4, -4, -5, -5 on curve, and that should be enough to take out just about anything. So this is potentially standard playable, but only in decks that self-mill, and I'm not really sure those are going to hit the A tier anytime soon, but they will be decks that we play, you know. So I do think that it is a very, very cool card. But I don't think it's anywhere near as powerful as the last time we saw a Chupacabra. What's up, Cat Lady? Just giving away subs. That's awesome. Thanks, Cat Lady, and welcome to the stream. Good to have you. But we'll move on to Aalpacal, the Seething Tower here. 3 mana, 1 a black and a green for a 3/3 legendary fungus with Descend 4 and Descend 8. Now, as long as there are 4 or more permanent cards in your graveyard, Aalpacal gets +2/+2 and has Trample. Well, 3 mana, 5/5 trample. And if you have 8 or more permanent cards in your graveyard, it gets another +2/+2 and can't be blocked by more than 1 creature. So unmenacing. It has to be 1 guy and 1 guy only. So at that point, you have a 3 mana, 7/7 trample, steamrolls 1 dude comically in every combat. So that could be halfway decent, and it's this deck again, you know. I don't know how many cards the Stick Fingers deck can get in this set, but I think we'll see another one in this video. At least 1 more in this video. So I'm not sure though. Ultimately, you know, that deck can only play so many Lurgoyfs, right? It's got to play some stuff that mills itself. And the balance is already a little thin, so this dude might just be a payoff for Descend strategies in Limited, but a pretty good one. But I will say, one last note, one of the disadvantages, one of the biggest weaknesses really to the Stick Fingers, Lorgoyf deck, that thing, is that none of the creatures have Trample. And you have to come up with like fancy ways, you know, to give your guys trample, because it's usually your Lurgoyf's going to get chump blocked like every single turn or whatever. This guy has trample. Like, he easily has trample, right? You can actually play this dude on turn 3 and he's not embarrassing, and he might already be a 5/5 trample in that deck. If he's not, you're going to untap, do something to mill yourself, and he will be a 5/5 trample on attacks. So, I don't know, man. 7/7 trample. You need trample in the deck so much that, like, he might actually be worth looking at. We'll move on to the Ancient One. Yet another card. This is the other card I was thinking of for those decks. This is a blue and a black for an 8/8 legendary spirit god with Descend 8. The Ancient One can attack or block, and if you have less than 8 permanents in your graveyard. So that's a lot of permanents to have in your graveyard. So many, but in the Stick Fingers deck, you can probably get to 8 permanents in your yard on like turn 4 if you're really working hard at it, you know. Like turn 1, Death Bloom Thallid, Death Bloom Fungus, Death Spore, whatever his name is, the 1-drop that lets you mill a card every single turn. And then turn 2 this, and then turn 3 you can like Gnawing Vermin plus a 2-drop like Blanchwood Prowler that puts 3 things in your yard, or like Undead Butler, something like that. The 2-drop Saga that does the same thing, you know. So I think it's possible to get this attacking on turn 4 pretty easily, because when you'll untap on turn 4 in some situations and already have like 5 or 6 permanents, like literally anything that mills yourself will do it. So I kind of like him, but he has the same problem as Somnophage, Lurgoyf. There's another one, it's like Lost Souls something. It just got printed in this set too, so there's another Lurgoyf style thing, and you just cannot play all of these, and this guy's legendary too, right? But he does have this. He does have this other ability. 2, a blue and a black, draw a card, then discard a card. When you do, target player mills cards equal to the discarded card's mana value. And he's an 8/8, right? 2 mana 8/8 seems good, but it doesn't do anything until you have 8 permanents in your yard. Now, I think that it's possible to like turbo that into existence. If you can make it happen on turn 3, then you're incredible, but it's going to be really, really, really difficult. That said, it's not hard. In that last example, Deathspore, whatever his face is like, that's 1, 2. By turn 4, it's 3 cards in your yard from him, 6 from Blanchwood Prowler, a total of 6, and then 8 from Gnawing Vermin if you played the Gnawing Vermin. So I think we actually got there. If you don't return the land to your hand from Blanchwood Prowler, that'll actually be a decision some of the time. But this thing is actually sweet. This static ability, even if it's not a creature, it can still, well, not a creature, it's the creature the whole time, but if it can't attack or block, it can still use the activated ability. Note that this is an activated ability, so Soul Cauldron and stuff like that, I guess, might care about this, especially considering you to discard cards, and Soul Cauldron wants to discard cards. But in any case, it's a pretty sweet little activated ability. If you have extra mana, you can do it at instant speed, right? Drawing cards is good, so you can mill yourself a whole bunch if you drop a big thing in there, so altogether, it's neat. It's kind of legendary proof a little bit, because it can discard itself to its own ability, you see there. So, and then mill yourself too. So, yeah, I don't know. It's fine, but again, you can only play so many of these. I'll say that for the last time this video, I hope. So, yeah. I was gonna move on, but you guys reminded me. I said this before the video started on the stream. There's a bunch of cards for fight rigging in this set. We already got like the 3 mana 6/6 dinosaur, and now this guy. You know, even if he can't attack or block, he can rig a fight. You know, you play fight rigging on turn 3, after this guy on turn 2, and then suddenly, bing bang, you got yourself a Titan of Industry or like whatever, and a Traxa. You know what I mean? So this is like the only 2 mana guy in the format that allows you to like turn 3 fight rigging. So look out for that. Sultai fight rigging is, I think, officially a deck because this guy's in the format. But even if you miss your, you know, turn 2, turn 3 fight rigging, then you'll almost certainly get your turn 4 fight rigging, because you got the 3 mana 6/6 too, along with Shakedown Heavy and whatever. So just an absolutely disgusting deck that thing is looking like right now. So let's move on to Zoes Justice. I knew I was going to screw it up. 2 mana, 1 and a red for an instant. The owner of target artifact or creature with mana value 1 or greater shuffles it into their library. Then that player discovers X, where X is the mana value. So you can't hit tokens, I guess, with this, but like, who cares? It's still like, Oh, better Chaos Warp? Is this not? I think it might be better than Chaos Warp. This is why it's all the way up here in the like lower rarity section towards the end of the lower rarity stuff. So I think this card might just be kind of bonkers. Like maybe not super standard playable, but in Commander, this is perhaps a staple piece of red removal forever. Am I wrong? Am I wrong about this? I'm fairly sure. Oh yeah, somebody reminded me just now in chat. I was supposed to bring this up too. The One Ring in Modern, right? We already saw a blue answer to it in the form of that Merfolk that flashes in, counters a artifact or counters a activated or triggered ability, and then blanks it for the rest of the time it's in play. A lot of people said that, you know, that's a tool against the One Ring in Modern, and now we get a great tool against the One Ring in Modern right here. So maybe they're trying to stop that card, but in the process, we get a really sweet version of Chaos Warp that I'm fairly certain is just a staple in literally every red Commander deck that'll ever be built from now until the end of time. So really, really, really sweet. You use it on yourself after sneak attack. I like the way you think. So it's cool that it can target artifacts too. A couple of things can do that. Like back there, the thing that the blue artifact that flashes in and taps something down, puts a stun counter on it, that also hits artifacts. So it's interesting that they are, you know, making sure that you can do stuff against the One Ring, I guess, but also just artifacts in general. So it's kind of neat. But let's move on to Ixalan's Lord Keeper. This is a single green mana for a 1/1 human druid. Tap to add a mana of any color. Spend this mana only to cast a dinosaur spell or activate an ability of a dinosaur. So dinosaurs just gets like a birds. It seems really good, man. Like, I've been wondering where this deck sits. You know, is it aggressive? Or is it going to be like a rampy mid-range deck? And I'm pretty sure that when you get an Elvish Mystic, you know, Lawn Elves, and like no one else does, then you're probably the sort of mid-rangey ramp deck. So yeah, I just want to make sure you guys know this card exists. Birds of Paradise, dinosaurs only. So looks really good, man. I don't really know any other way to sugarcoat it than damn. Like, it's woo. Man, is there enough for a dino deck in Standard? Looking more like it every day, baby. Really, though, we just got the 2-drop dinosaur that, like, becomes the power of whatever dinosaur comes into play that turn. I think that guy's really, really good. We got the 3-mana 6/6, obviously. That guy's good. So, dinosaurs is shaping up, baby. I think it might be all right, but, you know, any deck that's just like, I play creature types in Standard, it's got to be really good to be good, but Soldiers is one of those, and it's really good. So, well, we'll see. We'll see what Dinosaurs does. It's going to be a backbreaker in Limited if you get the right cards. I know that. Glimpse the Core up next. This is ridiculous. This card exists. This is 2 mana, 1 and a green for a sorcery. Choose one. Search your library for a basic forest card. Don't get any ideas. Put that card on the battlefield tap, then shuffle. Or return target cave card from your graveyard to the battlefield tap, which is really good. Both of these modes are crazy, man. This is Rampid Growth, but, you know, it does more than Rampid Growth. It's kind of interesting. Rampid Growth is just go get a basic land and throw it out. This is a basic forest, so you can't go get a triome or, you know, a dual land that has, you know, different types or anything, just basic forests. But that said, Wizards has been printing, you know, like 2 mana ramp into Standard forever now on dudes. You can have a dork that goes in, you know, might tap for a mana on turn 3 and ramp you a little bit. But you have not been able to get like a land ramp like this in Standard in really what feels like freaking forever, dude. I did not think that they would have the stones to do it, man. But here we are. This is basically what we call unconditional ramp. You know, like I don't have to like wing in a prayer, play my like dorky ramp guy on turn 2 and hope it doesn't get cut down or something. Like, no, I went and got a forest. Do something. Like, you can't, you know, so there's no stone rain in Standard, so, or at least no like playable land destruction effect. That is good. So just land ramp on a 2-drop, man. I really can't freak out about it enough. And if we get good caves, and we already know that we have good caves, you know, then this part of it is also really, really good. I think so. I like the way the descend mechanic kind of blends into the cave mechanic, because if you're descending a lot, you're getting a lot of caves in your graveyard. Then suddenly you get a good one in there, you know. Then you're fueling both caves. you're fueling both Descend stuff and you're fueling like cave strategies with cards like this. So I really like it. God, do I like this. Really, probably one of the better cards of the entire day, actually, dude. But we're going to look at a little bit more cave stuff as we move forward because caves are starting to shape up. They really are. Here's Forgotten Monument. This is a cave that does not enter the battlefield tapped, and it taps for a colorless mana. Other caves you control have tap, pay a life, add a mana of any color. Mana Confluence. Just makes all your other caves Mana Confluence. So I guess that means it plays well in multiples because then it too is a Mana Confluence if you have multiple copies of it in play. Great. 5 color caves needed pretty much exactly this line of text on a card. But what, the other thing it needed is caves that came into play untapped. And this is one of them. But it's not the only one. We also got Echoing Deeps. This is a cave. Comes to play untapped. Taps for a colorless. You may have Echoing Deeps enter the battlefield tapped as a copy of any land card in the graveyard, except it's a cave in addition to its other types. Note that's a may ability. You don't have to do that. So this can just come into play untapped and tap for colorless if that's what you need on that turn, which I think will happen some of the time. But note that it can copy any land card and then accept it's a cave, so it doesn't have to copy a cave. It can copy a Cradle, it can copy a Nykthos, it can even be a boat. Let's use that joke one more time. Let's just wear it out, So, like, this can be a lot of stuff. It's a kind of a thespian stage style deal. There's Dark Depths, but it still has to do all the stuff Dark Depths does because it enters as a copy, so yeah. No, you can't do Dark Depths tricks. All that said, this is a sick card. We now have 2 caves that are capable of entering the battlefield untapped. So we can get like Giant Leech on turn 4, the 5/5 lifelink. I don't care about that so much, but what I do care about is that we can get Bat Cavern on turn 3 and get 3 1/1 flying tokens from it. And I actually think that is kind of gross. I think that's good. And I like it. And note that both of these caves are actually halfway decent, Untapped taps for colorless, anything tap, everything's a Mana Confluence. That's actually really sick. This one, it can just be anything. It could even be a boat. So, these are both really good caves that have the capability, at least, of coming into play untapped. So, we get to play with Bat Cave. We get to play Bat Cavern, everybody. I'm really excited about that card. We get to play it. It's good. It's good. Caves are good. There it is. Some of them come into play untapped. Pretty good. Pretty all right. Lotus Field, play this. You'd still have to sack the lands, I think. Comes into play as a copy of Lotus Field. I guess you could still do it, though. Unless I'm thinking of something else. Restless Reef. Up next. This is the creature land of the day. It enters tapped. It adds blue or black, and you can pay 2, a blue and a black, to have it become a 4/4 blue and black shark creature token with death touch till end of turn. Still land when it attacks. Target player mills 4 cards. So you can mill yourself. Sick. Cool, like Soul Tile land. Or, blue-black land for the Soul Tile Lurgoyf stack and stuff. Seems alright. Big old mechanical shark man in the background gonna come to life, eat you up. I like that art. 4/4 is a pretty beefy guy. Yeah, it costs 4 to activate, but I don't care that much. 4/4 is a big man after the sweeper. And it's a shark, so it wins the creature type war as far as what is the coolest creature type of a creature land in this set. I think we got it. Death Touch pretty good too, because if they swing in with literally anything, it's dead. Pretty sure this is the only creature land in Standard that can tangle with a Shieldred and trade. So it might not be, but I think it's one of the very few, if anything. So really, really sweet. Cool thing to have. I think Death Touch is actually more problematic than it looks like on a thing like this. But yeah. For like Esper control decks, this is a disgusting creature land when you think about it that ends the game in like 5 bites. So kind of very, very good is all I'm saying. But we'll move on to Squirming Emergence right here. This is a black and a green for a sorcery with Lless Descent. Return to the battlefield target non-land permanent card in your graveyard with mana value less than or equal to the number of permanent cards in your graveyard. So this has the problem in the Lurgoyf deck. I've got to stop saying it. Bring that deck up every single time. It's Lurgoyf Day, everybody. But this has the problem in the Lurgoyf deck that a lot of cards that look cool in that deck have, and that is that it's not a creature. That deck has to play nothing but creatures, but quite a few creatures, right? More than a critical mass. It's got to play like 30 creatures, right? So you just don't have all the room in the world for cards like this, but it is very, very good in that deck. The problem with this card in that deck is that some of the time it is still mana negative because it's getting back a Lurgoyf or a Stick Fingers or a Somnophage, and those all cost 2 mana, you know? So what I think you want to be doing is really tricky stuff, because this gets back a non-land permanent and not just a creature. So if you can put a bunch of permanents in your graveyard somehow, and then like very, very early in the game reanimate a Portal to Phyrexia or something, then I think you're doing it very, very well. I think you're doing a good job playing Magic, especially, like, even if you have to wait till turn 4 or 5 to reanimate the Portal, then you still got a couple of mana left over to do stuff. That could be you counter a spell, remove a guy. So I don't know, man. I think there could be something here, obviously, especially like the farther back you go, the more able to fill your graveyard with stuff you are, right? So could be okay. Could be all right. I mean, what is the deal? You play Guardian of Nubenalia on turn 2 and you save 1 land. And then on turn 3, you just discard your entire hand, right? Discard your whole hand, play your 3rd land, and play this. Profit. Because what did you discard? Like 6 cards there? You can probably do something with that, you know? So, I don't know. It seems like there's probably some work for the card to do. Finally, something for 1 with nothingness, and or 1 with nothing. You just draw this eventually, and then again profit, but not sure it's quite there. You know, yes, the flavor text is incredible. The flavor text is amazing. By the way, that means that we can all be pirates. It's that easy. Just put a hat on. So here's Tarion Soul Cleaver, a single mana of any color. It's whatever you want. Go crazy, Hoss. For a legendary equipped creature has vigilance. Whenever another artifact or creature is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on equipped creature. It also has equipped 2. So kind of silly, actually. It turns all of your guys into Surge Ingers, right? They have the Surge Inger whenever an artifact is scrapped text that gets countered. But they also become like unruly mobs. The guy that's equipped to this is an unruly mob. So we have looked at a bunch of 1 mana equip 2 stuff. You know, it costs 1 to play, 2 to equip in this video already, and I keep pooping on it. But like, this is close. You know, this is kind of close right here. You know, in Aristocrats, like maybe, possibly. Your guys just getting like, +5/+5 by the time things are over, but I'm not really seeing it, but this is definitely one that you want to like test, you know, like maybe I'll put 1 copy of Soul Cleaver in Aristocrats. Cause Bartholomew, he wants to, eat artifacts and stuff. He can eat artifacts. Maybe there's a bunch of tokens in that deck, like blood tokens and clue tokens and food tokens or whatever, right? So maybe tokens are touching the graveyard all the time. They do touch the graveyard, by the way, and trigger this card. So keep that in mind. So, Bart eats a blood token, gets a +1/+1 counter. Eventually, Bart can eat this if it's not doing its job anymore. So, I don't know. It could be worse. You're sacrificing guys to Bart, and something's getting big. So, I don't know. It could be all right. Does this trigger if you sack a treasure token? Yes, it does. Yeah, again, tokens touch the yard. So, this is a commander card, isn't it? Dockside Extortionist. 8 tokens, sack them all, then gets +8/+8 in vigilance. It's kind of ridiculous. So. But yeah, any deck that's heavy on the treasure tokens could consider playing this. Absolutely. So it's cool. Probably goes in the red-white equipments deck if that deck is heavy on the treasure, and it may be. So not terrible. But we'll move on to Lament of the Forgotten. This is a blue and a black for a sorcery. Descend 8. Choose 1. If there are 8 or more permanent cards in your graveyard, though, you choose 1 or more. So you can choose all of these if you descended 8. But normally you're just picking 1. Mode 1. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Or target opponent discards a card on Mode 2. And on Mode 3, look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put 1 of them into your hand, the rest into your graveyard. So you get strategic planning, or just Day Discard, which is not a great card. Or you get a bounce spell. a boomerang, effectively. Well, no, it's not a boomerang, because boomerang can hit lands, but still. None of these are great at sorcery speed for 2 mana, but when you're getting all of them, it's very good. It's super good. It reminds me of a card like Recoil or Rebound or something like that from like Invasion block, where you returned a thing to their hand for like 3 mana, but if you kicked it, I think it was, if you kicked it, then they also had to discard a card. So, you know, if they didn't have any cards in their hand, then you're returning a thing to their hand and then they have to discard it. This reminds me of that. But instead of kicker, you know, you do have to do a lot of work. You know? Descend to 8 is ridiculous, but once you do have it, if they don't have any cards in their hand, and it's somewhat likely by that point in the game, they might have no cards, or very few. You know, bounce a thing and make them discard is really, really good late in the game. And then in the middle of all that, you get strategic planning too. Like, you go up a card, they go down a card, and they come off some board presence. So for 2 mana, that's really, really good, but none of the modes are very good by themselves. So it's not a dead card in the early game, but there's some real tension on whether or not you want to pull the trigger on this early. So we'll see. A very, very interesting card to look at, but we'll see if it can actually do anything in Standard. It certainly looks powerful, but this is one of those that I'm going to pull back from a little bit and say that it might look more powerful than it actually is. But if you get all the modes on this, it's busted. It's very good. So we'll move on to Aalpacal, First Among Equals. This is 3 mana, 2 and a blue for a 1/5 legendary human advisor. At the beginning of each player's end step, if an artifact entered the battlefield under your control this turn, look at the top 2 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand and the other into your graveyard. So, sweet little ability on an uncut downable dude, by the way, right? And how hard is it to get an artifact to enter under your control? We just talked about how many times during each of these videos can I name all of the token types in Standard. There's like 5 different artifact tokens in Standard, it feels like, at least. So a few that feature somewhat prominently. So obviously it's good with all of those, but you could also just do it the old-fashioned way and play an artifact out of your hand. And this guy's just giving you card advantage every turn for doing that. Really, really good. Starting on turn 3, you could also just set it up with an Urbrask's Forge, and that basically guarantees it's going to get the bonus every single turn. You could also flash in artifacts on their turn, or, you know, flash in a thing that gives you a food token or a treasure or clue or whatever. And that works, you know, so you can trigger this on your opponent's turns, and I think that's important. Putting one of the cards in your graveyard is obviously very, very good. Sometimes that's going to basically read draw 2 cards at the beginning of each end step, so it's kind of disgusting. But just altogether a really, really interesting little card. Works well in the 99 of a lot of commander decks, I would imagine, or even as the commander. But I don't know if this works very well in Standard, but I will reiterate, just double down that it can't be cut down, which I think is kind of important. And aside from that, you know, card advantage every single turn, cool. And by the way, this is card advantage that doesn't, you know, Shieldred doesn't punish you for, which might also be kind of important. It blocks really, really well, too, on turn 3, so I wouldn't sell this thing short. I think it's kind of okay. Yeah, they sure do block. Yeah, look at that butt, man. Big old booty on this human advisor. We'll move on to Sentinel of the Nameless City. Getting Tired Tracker, I guess. It's 3 mana, 2 and a green for a 3/4 Merfolk Warrior Scout with Vigilance. And when it enters the battlefield or attacks, create a map token. So this is pretty good. This is all right, man. A 3 mana, 3/4, not the absolute best stats in the world or anything, but they threw a pretty decent keyword on it, especially in a Wandering Emperor format. And it does have a chance of getting bigger, you know, incrementally more or less every turn. I like that, you know, this will enter the battlefield and automatically get you something, guaranteed. And then if it sticks around for a turn, it's probably going to get you another map token. Like when it starts putting multiple map tokens on the table, I think it's really good. This is where map tokens activating as a sorcery kind of sucks, because I wish that it could attack and like during combat somewhere activate the map token so it might get +1/+1 buff on blocks. I think that could lead to some really interesting situations. But I think on a lot of, you know, turn 4s, especially on the play, you're going to have this sort of consequence-free attack with it because it has Vigilance. You might as well attack. Attacking gets a map token. Going into combat, you could always pop the treasure that it gave you the turn that you played it, which I like. If you play it on turn 4 or higher, you can go ahead and pop the token that same turn, given that you have the mana. All that's good, you know. Sometimes it'll draw you cards and make sure you get your, land drops. Just all together, I keep hearing that, this is a worse version of this card or another, Tireless Tracker's just one. But I actually think this is kind of neat. I think that there are probably better green 3-drops in Standard than this, right? I will say that much, but I do think it's kind of okay. I do think it's okay. If this was printed like 8 years ago, it'd be ridiculous. But in today's day and age, you got to look at something like this and be like, okay, this is fine. But there are definitely situations where it's more than fine, right? So I like this guy a lot. I think it's all right. But let's move on to Starved Revenant. This is 4 mana, 2 and 2 black for a 4/4 Spirit Horror. And when it enters the battlefield, you surveil 2. Then for each card surveilled to the top of your library this way, draw a card and lose 3 life. Ouch. Descend 8. Whenever you draw a card, if you have 8 or more permanents in your graveyard, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So this is a twofold card here. On the one half, what is it? It kind of wants to be like a Mole Drifter or something else that like draws cards when it ETBs, right? But that's a lot of life. I'm just thinking about Standard here. It's kind of like a Sylvan Library, isn't it? The first mode, It's like, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put any of them in your hand that you want to, and lose 4 life on Sylvan Library for each one you do that with. But, Sylvan Library is ridiculous. But Sylvan Library is famously most ridiculous in Commander, where this will probably also be most ridiculous, right? Because if you put both cards in your hand with this in Commander, you lose 6, big whoop, you know what I mean? But like in Standard, if you put both cards in your hand and lose 6, you just lost like a third of your life total almost. So it's a lot tougher to sell in Standard. But that said, maybe you just want to mill yourself when this comes into play. It's 4 mana, mill 2 for a 4/4. When you look at it that way, it looks kind of okay in like Stick Fingers, Z-decks and stuff like that. If you do see a card that you really need to draw, you can draw one of them and pay 3 life, put the other one in your yard. That's fine too. Once you do finally have the, 8 cards in your graveyard, this becomes another way to win the game. It becomes a Keza, I think that's how you say it name. The Esper legend from a few sets back that like drains whenever your opponent draws, or whenever you draw. This is a lot like that, man. So that's kind of neat. If you have draw spells in your deck, this gets better, but it also just kind of is incremental value every single turn. It gives you back some of the life that you lost when you drew the cards and stuff. So that's cool. Just a nice little solid body for like the Lurgoyf deck and just any deck, right? I don't think that it's better than like Shieldred in mono black, but drawing a couple of cards is good. It works alongside Shieldred pretty well because it really only costs you 1 life to draw each of these cards if you have a Shelly in play. So that's good. If you have a Shelly in play and you've already descended 8, that means that you're going to gain 3 and they lose whenever you draw at that point. So also disgusting. So it plays well with Shieldred, but it sucks that it's on curve alongside her. Just altogether a really very, very sweet card that has more modes on it than you think. Right? Because sometimes just mill 2 is a decent mode on this, especially if that mill 2 gets you closer to descending 8. That's kind of a decision that you have to make. Do I want that card, or is it the 7th or 8th card in my, permanent card in my graveyard? So really, actually, very sweet, and I want to play it and play with the card. So let's move on to Molten Collapse. Is this the last card of the day? No, this is the last card of the day. Okay, Molten Collapse is a black and a red for a sorcery. Choose one. If you descended this turn, you may choose both instead. You descended if a permanent was put into your graveyard from anywhere. Mode 1, destroy target creature or planeswalker. Mode 2, destroy target non-creature, non-land permanent with mana value 1 or less. So, gross. Strict upgrade on Dreadbore. It's just better than Dreadbore. Dreadbore's sorcery speed for this exact cost. Destroy target creature or planeswalker, no gravy text. They just put frosting on Dreadbore, and it's pretty good, man. It's pretty I don't know if they use buttercream, but it's good. You'll probably use this mode more than you think. It is not hard to descend. It is really not hard, you guys. I mean, you can sacrifice something if you want to. You can mill yourself too. You can just attack and lose a guy in combat, and suddenly you've descended, right? So at that point, you get to blow up most likely non-creature tokens, very likely tokens, but there's a bevy of one-drop. There's a bunch of one-drops. Just in Standard, you can blow up with this, but obviously the farther back you go, the better you get, right? So Really actually neat. It sucks that it can't hit creatures on the second mode like ever, right? But again, there will be targets for this, not only in standard, but the farther back you go, there will be more targets. And it's going to be easier to descend, theoretically at least. You know, Faithless Looting, boom, I descended 9 times out of 10, right? So, seems okay, man. Just seems okay. I'm pretty sure that Dreadbore sees play all the way back to at least Pioneer. I don't know if it sees much play in Modern, but I know it sees play in Pioneer. So this is just strictly better. I said the thing. It's the name of the channel. Woo! But in this case, there's a reason to use the term. This is why the name of my channel even exists in the first place is because sometimes they print literally strictly better versions of cards. This is it. They did it with a card that is already really good. Really good. I think Rakdos might be back on the menu because this is a disgusting removal spell, even at sorcery speed. This is a really good removal spell. Yep. Yeah, Dreadbore's a sorcery. It is. Yeah, fake news in the chat. Is it Dreadbore's an instant, right? Nope. Dreadbore's always been a sorcery. So yeah, it just is. It just is better. So kind of bananas. Kind of not the. I was just talking the other night about how power creep has mostly occurred on creatures. They don't power creep spells too often. Well, shut my front mouth because this. So here we are. But let's move on to the final card of the day. It's a big kooky artifact. It's Shamil, the Inner Sun. It is a 6-mana legendary artifact. Spells you control can't be countered. At the beginning of your end step, discover 5. Exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card with mana value 5 or less. Cast it without paying its mana cost or put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom in a random order. So this is counterable. I wish that this in and of itself were not counterable, but they screwed it up. I keep seeing people be like, it casts uncounterable spells every turn for you. Yes, it does theoretically do that. You've also got to stick it before it does any of that, and you never, ever will. So, I don't know. What format is this for? You guys want to wager a guess what format this card is for? It's for Commander. And it's really good there. It also looks good in like a crazy, like a cube, where like every card is ridiculous, you know? It's super high power cubes and such. But not super high power, like power 9. We're going to make 12 mana on turn 2, but like everything is zany, you know? It looks really good in those. This looks like a really fun card to have on the table, right? I don't want to have it in my hand the entire game waiting to play it, but actually playing this, resolving it, and sticking it to the table. Yes. Yes. Oh, absolutely. Have a lot of fun. I have so much fun. I think it's kind of bait, because in Commander, you know, you still spend 6 mana, and all they have to do is crack it. You know what I mean? Like, all they have to do is disenchant it or whatever. And that doesn't feel good, but uncounterable free spells every single turn probably does feel awesome. So there's one's for you, Commander players. I find that a lot of cards in the set seem to be in some ways balanced for both standard and Commander, and I don't know how they're pulling it off, but it seems like they are. Like they have Commander applications and standard applications, and I think that's a cool way to make a set. This, unashamedly a Commander card. Nothing else, man. This could get banned in Pioneer and Modern. This card or this card? This card. You mean Chimil? Chimil. The Inner Sun. By the way, one more correction. It's not even a correction. I've had a bunch of people in the comments section and even like patrons message me frantically, like, you know who you are, being like, hey Dev, you left some cuts into the last video when you were trying to pronounce a card. And it's like, yeah, I know I did that. I did that because I kind of thought it was cute in the moment while I was editing. It's like when I finally get it, it's all triumphant, you know, and I go at it like 5 times. I finally nail it. And I did leave that in on purpose. A few people wondered if I left it in on purpose. I left it in on purpose, but in any case, back to this card. It's awesome. What else do you say about this? What else do you say about this card? I guess it can't discover into itself, but I guess that's good because it's legendary. So, but it's good. It's good. It kind of pays you back the turn you play it. It pays you back up to 5 mana the turn you play it, but you know, sometimes it's just going to get like a 2-drop. So there is that. Very chaotic card, very red in nature, it feels. But actually, it feels kind of gruel in nature. That can't be counted as green. The Discover 5 beginning of your instep is red. So. But yeah, sweet card in it, you know. But Let's see if anything else showed up today. I think there are a couple of cards that I hadn't covered. Oh, but I don't know what this guy is. Stinging Cave Crawler right here is kind of neat. You can kind of see him behind my head. He's a 3-mana 1/3 insect horror with Death Touch. If you have 4 permanents in your graveyard, whenever it attacks, you draw a card and lose a life. That's actually kind of neat. It's definitely good and limited, I think. But Council of Echoes is 6 mana for a 4/4 flying Spirit Advisor. It's got Descend 4. When it ETBs, if you have Descended 4, return up to 1 target non-land permanent other than Council of Echoes to its owner's hand. So you get a little like Mana War kind of effect on your 6 mana 4/4 flyer. That's actually probably better and limited than it looks because it's not too hard to Descend 4 by that point in the game. So kind of decent there. But Guardian of the Great Door, I have no idea what this card does. So let's take a quick look-see at this. Oh, it's a 2-mana angel. Yes, okay. So 2 white mana for a 4/4 angel with flying. As an additional cost to cast this spell, tap 4 untapped artifact creatures and or lands you control. So, okay, so it can be 6 mana for a 4/4 flyer, or it convokes, or you can use your artifacts to convoke it as well. So that's kind of neat. Oh, do you play this in Affinity? What if you play this in Affinity? You play a bunch of free artifacts or whatever. Then you tap the artifacts to play this guy. It's a 4/4 flyer. That'd be neat. It's an uncommon, guys. It's kind of neat. It's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. I guess it's not a 2-drop angel, so I'm mad at it. A little bit. We've seen a couple angels like this in the past. So I guess it's a callback to them. But that sucks. I want a 2-drop angel, man. I want it. It is kind of cool that you can play a creature and then immediately like tap that creature. You know, summoning sick or not, you can tap that creature to help play this guy. Well, that's cool. If you get a bunch of artifacts out really fast, which is not actually that hard, like Selesnya Food, right? Like Selesnya Food, play this guy. Because on turn 3, they can just tap their foods and play this dude, you know, somewhat easily. That's kind of neat. This dude is interesting, man. The fact that you can tap artifacts to play him is really, really nice. And, like, you can just cover for anything you don't have with lands. You know, like, oh, he cost me 3 mana for a 4/4 flying shot. I'm still going to pay that, you know. If you tap down a creature or two to help play it, then, like, you still get a 4/4 flyer. So it's not like you took too many shields down or you're, like, too scared of the crackback in the early game. So I guess we got to do the math on, like, when you can theoretically play this thing the earliest. It's probably turn 3 in Standard. But big whoop. I guess you could play like Blood Fountain on turn 1, and that gives you 2 artifacts, right? It gives you 2 artifacts. Then on turn 2, you just play your second planes. Well, you play Caves of Koilos or something on turn 1. Turn 2, you play white, and then you still have to have 2 things. That's going to be tough. But, you know, I guess if you just like reinforcements at the end of your opponent's turn, then you have 4 permanents in play that can tap to help you cast this. You know, play a land and you've got like extra money to play around with at that point on turn 3. Could be okay, but then you have to play Blood Fountain in your deck, and that's bad. But I guess just like Resolute Reinforcements, like anything like that gives you multiple things, you know, multiple guys on one card. Pretty decent to help you cast this. We're just basically doing Convoke math again. That's all we're doing. But I don't know, man. Like a creature that makes an artifact when he comes into play or something. Like those seem really good with this. So it's like Improvise and Convoke had a baby, exactly. You can also tap lands. But I like this guy, man. I'm glad that we didn't skimp on like the reload today because this guy's cool. He's an awesome dude to like kind of wrap your head around at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Darksteel ingot prices skyrocketing. You think? I don't know. Improvoke. Nice. I'm the deuced. You're better at this than I am. You should do my job, seriously, because Improvoke is what you call that. That's actually really, really good. I will say that is good, especially if you are like turn 1 artifact or creature, turn 2 creature that gets you 2 things, or a creature that also plays an artifact. Charming Scoundrel, you know, like gives you a creature that gives you an artifact. And then you're getting that guy like really quickly. So I like it. Human music. I like it. But anyway, everybody, oh my goodness, we're an hour and 14 minutes in. We danced and played all night, everybody. Convomise? That looks better. I don't know that it does. Compromise? I see. That's probably the best one, right? Compromise? Compromise. I have to say it correctly. But anyway, that means this video is going to be like an hour long or something like that. So good to know. Wanted to get on for a quick stream, see my boys and my ladies and my, you know, my guys, my gals, and my non-binary pals, and just kind of say what's up, do a little spoiler action, put it on the YouTube, blah, blah. So, but here we are. I can't hang out with you guys without just talking the night away. So hope you enjoyed yourself. Of course, if you're still watching the YouTube portion of this, go down in the comment section. Let me know what you felt like your favorite cards of the day were. Saw some great lower rarity stuff again, and some pretty nutso rares, but that's just every day, dude. We see crazy rares and mythics like every day. And so set's shaping up pretty well. We still have like a little over 100 cards, I think, to see from this thing. So join us. Obviously, tomorrow's Halloween as I record this. If you're watching this on Halloween, boo! Happy Halloween to you. But that's pretty much all I've got for this one. So just do the YouTube stuff on your way out, right? Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't done it yet. Be like these good folks and come over to the Twitch. Don't you want to be like Peepo Lich? They just subscribed. They've been here for 18 months. That's a long, long time. We could have had 2 babies in the time I've known Peepo Lich. Also, Purple Wizard, you followed a few seconds ago. Cat Lady gifting subs. Cat Lady resubscribing for 39 months. SMWS Music. Joshua Gom with the 33 months. Enigma 58, you followed a day ago. In case you see this YouTube video, you're famous now. That is all I've got in terms of saying people's names. Telling you what to do. Just come on over here to Twitch. You see how much fun we're having? Broski the White has followed you, getting your name in a YouTube video. It feels really nice. But in any case, I'm donezo for this one, so I will catch you cats later. Just come on over here to Twitch, linked in the description. Check out the Patreon to support the channel. I need that. Oh my God, I need that. I'll let you vote on what decks we do first here during the season for Lost Caverns of Ixalan, and there's going to be a whole bunch of decks I want to try. So affect the course of YouTube history and help us choose our first decks for the season. Go over to Patreon, link in the description. Throw just $1 a month my way, and it will be very, very greatly appreciated. But aside from that, I am actually done. 4th time I've said it. I mean it this time, everybody. I'm serious. I'm a serious person. I love you very much. Shane's birthday tweet. Thanks for your 21 months. I love you very much. I'm Deb from the Place. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Spread love and be kind.